those jobs. Okay, I got to click on got it. So I got it. We're recording. Number 3, high quality and affordable healthcare for everyone. And of course, clean air and water and environmental sustainability for everyone, to include the focus on the clean energy jobs of the future for everyone. So I bring a lifetime of service and developmental experiences to this endeavor. I'm the husband for nearly 35 years to my great wife, Colonel Retired Lorelei W. Coplen. I'm the father of 2 extraordinary adult daughters. I don't know if you can see this picture. I hope you can. But I'm going to show you in the middle. That, of course, is my mom, mi madre extraordinaria de Texas y Mexico. Ella era una maestra. She was a teacher and elected school board member. And this is her with my 2 daughters on just before graduation day. This is Jackie. She, at that point, was a UVA law school graduate, now an Army JAG officer. This is Michaela, national student poet, now a PhD student at Oxford. So surrounded by brilliant women, and of course, another brilliant woman, my wife, taking this picture. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say, while I've got this up, because I know there's a question about Roe versus Wade and a question about, reproductive rights. And I feel this way strongly for a whole lot of reasons, but I will strongly support a woman's right to choose. Here are 3 good reasons why, but a woman's right to choose every single thing about her health care and every single thing about her life. So I could give you all kinds of reasons, but given the time, I'm going to stick with this right here, because it's all about, family and support and the right of all the brilliant and maybe not so brilliant women out there to make their own choices. Okay, so let me move on and tell you that, among other things, I'm a graduate of West Point. I earned a master's of public administration from Princeton, the School of Public and International Affairs. I'm a lifelong teacher. I would better define that as a facilitator of adult learners. I've done that at West Point for 3 years, at Elizabethtown College for about 11 years, and at the War College for 10 years. So I'm an elected school board member since 2015, Carlisle, serving there. We're now selecting a new superintendent, the most important thing we do. I'm a board member of the Employment Skills Center and the chairman of the Rotary Veterans Initiative, which I'm very proud of, because since 2015, we've provided over $150,000 to veterans in the central Pennsylvania area, and veterans of all stripes, all colors, all creeds, doesn't matter as long as they're qualified and they're going to either Hack, Penn State, or a couple of Central Penn College. So I'm very proud of what we're doing in that regard. So let me talk to really quickly the voting rights issue, which I see as one of the questions, and say, number 1, I absolutely positively believe that defending our democracy, as I mentioned, defending our Constitution is also, of course, in the face of Scott Perry and others, defending voting rights. And I'll be even more specific. The question asked, I will vote for the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I will vote for the For the People's Act. I will vote for proposals to restore voting rights in federal elections for the more than 4 million citizens with criminal convictions after they pay their debts to society. I will vote for efforts to raise rates of voter registration and participation in elections, including the proposal to make Election Day a national holiday and automatic voter registration, and other strong support for voting rights. I will also highlight that Mr. Scott Perry, as you know, has on multiple occasions betrayed his oath of office. He's betrayed, in this vein and others, he's betrayed the Constitution of the United States. He's betrayed our democracy. I believe, most importantly, he's betrayed the trust of each and every one of us. He is not fit for office. I will always fulfill my oath of office. I've always done so in uniform, in combat, in peacekeeping, in teaching, and I've done so. We swear the same oath, not only to the Constitution of Pennsylvania, but also to the Constitution of the United States when we swear the oath as school board members. So wrapping up, I will say, if we're going to truly become the United States and be really united again, I think we need first a common understanding of the truth of many of our societal challenges. We need some common goals. I'm suggesting, from what I'm hearing from everybody, you know what that common goal, at least one of those key common goals should be? The future of our children. John F. Kennedy said at American University, we all cherish our children's future. I think that should be a rallying point for all of us. Clearly, education, training, college, a path to college that's not so debt-ridden. And then I'll wrap up by saying, you know what? I think ultimately we need aspirational, inspirational leadership at every level of our government, not just in Congress. And of course, I'm a huge fan of the Kennedys, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. And Robert Kennedy used to end just about every one of his campaign speeches by saying this, said, you know, some people see things as they are and ask why, but I dream things that never were and ask why not. So ladies and gentlemen, we all know that historically, Democrats deliver for all Americans. I think we need to do that again. And I'm glad to take your questions. And thank you very much for this time, Bernie and company. Thank you.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Go for it.
So I'm going to read them in the order they came in, and I know you hit on some of them, so I'm just going to like mention it again if there's anything you want to add, and if not, we'll skip to the next one. The first question that came in was, how will your campaign excite younger people?
Okay, well, I think I've hit on a little bit about that. I think, you know, and I've worked with younger people all the time in the high school. I'm literally in the high school quite a bit, listening to students, working with students. I've got some young people, I consider them young people, they're college age students that are helping with our campaign, and brilliant young women and men that do that. So I'm listening first and foremost to them very carefully. You know, I'm sure you're hearing similar things. I'd be anxious to hear later on what other people think, of course. But among other things, I'm hearing about, you know, great concerns for, of course, their future in the job market. I see there's something regarding jobs. Clearly, many of them are concerned about their ability to pay for college and career training. We all know both are important, and other ways and other pathways after school. They're all concerned about everything, quite frankly, that, you know, adults are concerned about in terms of healthcare and making their own choices. And they're also concerned absolutely, positively. You know, I mentioned clean air and water and a livable environment. Well, absolutely, the young people, and they should, and we should all be recognizing that climate change is an existential threat and that we need to deal with it accordingly. So I guess the first key answer to that question is by speaking to the issues that I'm hearing, that I believe you're hearing, that those young people really care about. And I've just rattled off a few of them. I know there are many more, but time is limited. So please go on to the next one, Shanna.
Sure. So the second question, I know I heard you already talk about supporting the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and keeping Roe versus Wade safe, but did you have anything to add to that, or are you ready to move on?
I think, let me move on to other questions. We
Okay.
can always, if there's follow-on questions about those, happy to take them given the time available.
Sure. Next question was, how do you plan to get Republicans and independents to vote for you over Scott Perry?
Okay, that's an excellent question and goes to the crux of how we win this election. So number one, I do it because I've done it before. In fact, I did it last November, and this is a key point. So I do it by who I am, where I come from, the positions, and the focus on solutions as opposed to dramatic party labels or partisan positions. So yes, I'm a strong Democrat. I've laid out some of those values and where my thoughts come from. But bottom line is, last November, I was the #1 vote getter. I won more votes from Republicans, independents, and Democrats than the Republicans in the race, and more than the Democrats. Not that that mattered, but I was the #1 vote getter. So there's a track record there that I've demonstrated that I can do. You know, I could say all sorts of things, but the bottom line is I've demonstrated it recently. And so the other thing is, I'm doing my best, and we spoke to this, you know, just last Monday at the candidate forum, to say, and it's not hard to make this case, because it's very true that Scott Perry, we all know, Freedom Caucus leader, far, far right extremist on so many different issues. He's a radical Republican, and that's almost going back to Civil War days in that language, but he's a radical extremist, far right Republican. So I think the way we win, regardless of who it is and what race we're talking about, we talk to the reasonable Republicans. We certainly don't publicly trash them or talk negatively about them or call them names, although we might all want to question the sanity of ever voting for a man named Donald Trump. However, you get where I'm going with that. In other words, trying to partition off those reasonable Republicans, many of which we know have changed their party affiliation, or at least are contemplating it in the face of the disastrous former administration. And probably enough on that for now. Thank you very much. Excellent question. That's a start. obviously an active campaign using all available tools to reach everyone. So go ahead, ma'am.
All right, next. This might be the first election in a long time when a shortage of jobs might not be as much a problem as a shortage of workers. How would you address the current worker shortage?
Okay, that's an excellent question as well. I would highlight there are multiple ways to go about doing that. I strongly believe that I've already laid out a portion of that. And that's the whole, and here you go. Here's a way to appeal to Republicans. And I firmly believe this. And I actually showed at my kickoff, and I've stated this, and I've quoted this man many times over and over again. And yes, he's a Republican, but his name is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, in his very first speech as a political candidate, said something like this. I'll paraphrase badly. Said, "The most important thing we do as a society is educating our children." I'm willing to bet that everybody on this call agrees with that. So that's the first thing. You hear where I'm going with this. In other words, it's all about education. It's all about job training. It's all about, getting people into college and career programs that doesn't weigh them down with tremendous debt. I would suggest, in a second or third term, I'd be willing to take on a dramatic reform to the way that public education is paid for across America. So that's one. The other one is the obvious immigration reform. I'm a huge fan of immigration reform and doing many, many things in that regard, a path to citizenship, more H-2A visas. I've even highlighted my support for conditional green cards. Simple as you come in, you work on a green card, you're doing a lot of these agricultural jobs or other jobs. You work hard, you pay your taxes, you don't commit crimes, all those things that we know. And from my family background, I'll give you a quick, indicator. I'm half Hispanic American. So that clearly I recognize the strength of America is our diversity, and bringing in more immigrants is a path to strength and a path to obviously more great workers, not just at the lower wage jobs, but also when those that really require some significant brain power. So that's probably enough on that one, Shanna.
All right, we've got one more, I think, that I've seen. How do you plan to address Scott Perry's failures as our current congressman during your campaign? And I believe you've got about 1 minute left.
Okay,
Two
2 minutes. Okay, well, I probably don't need that much. Anyway, thank you very much. Another excellent question. I don't know. Let's just wait another day and another vote. He gives us another gift, and makes another huge mistake. And there are just so many. Where to begin? But I've already kind of alluded to, and I mentioned, what we will do is clearly highlight point by point, and we're just getting started doing this, all the huge mistakes that Mr. Perry's made. Let's think of just for a moment about one, probably the most significant, 6 January 2021. We know with certainty that he voted, to basically throw out all our votes and to throw out that election and try to elect the guy that was clearly not elected. And then what happened earlier that day? Well, we really don't know for sure yet what Mr. Perry's role in that. Maybe that'll come to fruition. Of course, he doesn't want to testify about that. Most recently, what did he do? He voted not to support NATO. And that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And many other things. So bottom line, and we don't have time to tick them all off, but we all know Scott Perry has made so many dramatic mistakes that impact people and our national prestige, quite frankly. I think also recently, just in the last 48 hours or so, he voted not to be in favor of pursuit of Russians as war criminals. And that's mind-boggling. Of course, they're war criminals. The proof is there in front of us. So many others, just to lay all those out in all the different tools that we have, Facebook, website, direct mail, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Right on time.
I did put the information that Bernie sent to me earlier in the chat a little while ago, which was your Facebook page and your website. But if there's anything else you would like to share, if you want to just go ahead and put that right in the chat.
Yeah, I did. It was just basically that, and a thank you very much, and my email and phone number, and good enough. It's in there from before, I believe. But thank you very much, Shanna, and everyone. Appreciate it.
I'll copy that and reshare it because there are some folks who joined after who might not have
I can do that. You got enough to do. I'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Then if anybody has other questions that they'd like to ask Rick, you can just take a look at his email address and get in touch with him that way.
Can I also, in this in between,
Yes.
not everyone specified that their question was for both candidates. So the only ones that I have that were for both candidates are the John Lewis voting rights one and the worker shortage one. So if others want their question asked to both candidates, if you could just indicate that or type your questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. So moving on, Shamaine, you get to start and you have 15 minutes. It's about 2:32 now.
Okay, so my name is Shamaine Daniels, and I'm running for Pennsylvania's 10th Congressional District. I have been a 3-term councilwoman for the city of Harrisburg, and in that period, I reduced red tape and fees associated with opening small businesses. I've doubled fines for slumlords, and I've invested in youth programming. Professionally, as an attorney, I've been an attorney and college educator for well over a decade. The first half of my legal career, I spent raising civil rights and employment claims, and the second half helping Americans and immigrants navigate our immigration system. My value system is what drove me to the profession that I did, and the professions that I did, that I practiced, or would give me the experience to be a better representative for this district than what we currently have. What we have right now is Scott Perry, who doesn't represent the values of this district. In his term as our representative, he has voted against maternity care because it didn't benefit him directly, and he was explicit about that. He voted against making it easier for vets to transition into civilian life. And most recently, he voted to allow pharmaceuticals to continue to raise the price of insulin as much as they wanted to. In addition to that, he has undermined our democracy and the integrity of our electoral process. And all he has done over the years is really show over and over again that he's incompetent and incapable of addressing the issues that are pressing on the district, investing in our infrastructure, advancing the rights of women and families, and fixing our broken immigration system. When I came to the US as a teenager, my mom was able to raise a family and send me to college on just one minimum wage job. And that opportunity doesn't really exist anymore for residents in this district. And they don't exist because Scott Perry, instead of using his energies to help us, he has used his energies to peddle conspiracy theories instead of trying to figure out what's going on in his district, to leading insurrections instead of strengthening our institutions, and fomenting hate among our residents instead of solutions. So I'm asking you to vote for me come November because I believe I'm the better candidate and the best candidate to represent the values of this district. And that's it for me. Thank you. So should I go ahead and answer the questions in the order?
Yeah, I'll read them out for you.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question we had, which I'm going to assume was for both candidates, was how are you planning to excite younger voters?
So I think a lot of it really goes to my platform, right? We need to address, to energize young voters, you have to care about the things that affect their lives. Right now, it's the large amount of student debt that young people are carrying so that they can't really get out of debt and into home ownership and car ownership and opening their businesses. We also need to address things like childcare, investing in those things, equal pay for young women as they're entering the workforce. As you can tell, childcare is a big deal for everyone, whether you're in your 20s or your 40s like I am. So, I think it's been comforting to me because since I've launched this campaign, students from Penn State, students from the university where I teach, students from Westchester have reached out to me to see how they could help because they like the things I care about and they resonate with them. So I think that's the way to energize a younger constituency. Oh, and Dickinson Law too. So.
Okay, the next question was, do you support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and do you support keeping Roe versus Wade safe?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, there we go. How do you plan to get Republicans and independents to vote for you over Scott Perry?
Okay, so I think, in spite of the, what are they? The Jesus is my God, Trump is my president flags that I see on my way to Gifford Pinchot to hike. York actually has quite a large portion of moderate Republicans and independents. And those are the people who initially reached out to me from York because I've worked with many of them over the years. People think immigration is an isolated thing that only immigrants care about. But over the years, people who've lost workforce, people who have felt that fellow business people were competing unfairly against them, people who cared about, employers who were violating a myriad of other rules because they're able to, because their workforce is undocumented, would reach out to me, and we would, build relationships over the years over worker safety conditions in both ag and manufacturing. One of the things that was interesting to me after 2017, Pennsylvania was targeted heavily for raids. And that was probably the year where I received the most calls from Republican-leaning people because their lives had been upended by the raids, whether they were employers or just, people who needed daycare and their daycare person disappeared overnight. The issues I care about are not, they're not bipartisan issues. I think everyone agrees our immigration system is broken. It needs to be fixed. It's an albatross in our economy. It's an albatross in our morality. And we can't get ahead of anything if we don't deal with it.
Okay, next one. This might be the first election in a long time when a shortage of jobs might not be as much a problem as a shortage of workers. How would you address the current worker shortage?
I think by little bits and pieces within the platform I've articulated, right? The large, people forget that in order for someone to go to work, they need to have childcare. So when women, I think I'm in my 4th month waiting for a childcare center to open up, right? So we've made it difficult. We've created that shortage by creating really difficult to work environments for the workers in that system. They're paid very poorly, so their wages need to go up. So making sure that the people who are responsible for childcare in the home can get to work is a big deal in addressing worker shortages. Again, fixing the immigration system, a lot of the temporary workers that we have, those applications don't even get processed on time because the system doesn't even have enough staff to process them. So even if you have those temporary workers that you could bring in to fill in some gaps here and there, as an employer, you're not getting them because we haven't staffed USCIS to capacity for many, many years now. So, especially more so for ag than manufacturing, right? If you get your workforce 3 days after, let's say, your apples have reached their peak when they need to be picked, that might as well mean that you didn't get your workforce on time. So all of those little investing in our infrastructure so that there's more transportation to get to work more reliably, et cetera, et cetera. So each component of the platform. Yeah, I don't know if I think she's protesting, I'm not sure. Everyone in the platform, elements of the platform address ways in which people can able to contribute to the community. Oh, and going back to the first question about the Republicans and independents, with both, when recently we had a forum with the Cumberland County Farmers Bureau, and I was the only candidate in that group who'd work on similar issues that they had, because the same issues, which is access to driver's licenses, affect urban communities as much as they affect rural communities. But the problem is, you know, a simple fix, which is access to driver's licenses. So, you know, so I've had working relationships with independent and Republican members of the district over the last, you know, I've been here since 2006, 2005, the end of 2005.
Okay, the next one was, how do you plan to address Scott Perry's failures as our current congressman during your campaign?
I think it's really simple. Once you look at my platform, they're all the things he has refused to invest in and work in, and they're all things that help the residents of this district, right? He voted against infrastructure. He voted against capping the cost of insulin. He has been complaining about immigration and hasn't done anything about it, right? So his complaints about immigration have really just been talking points. He doesn't actually believe half of what he says. But the residents in this district have been harmed by his policy positions, right? Regardless of whether he genuinely or doesn't genuinely believe in them. You know, opposing maternity care. Maternal care has been in the news lately, you know, because we see how poorly we treat women in our medical care system, you know, and he doesn't care about it because, you know, I think it was Alyssa Packer who interviewed him, and he said because he can benefit from it, he would not support it, right? And if that's the kind of legislator you have a legislator who's not capable of like solving problems that the district that has, because none of us have all of the experiences of all of the residents, right? We have to be open and we have to care about the people who we live with and along with to help them meet their needs. And that means listening to people. Anyways, so I think campaigning on the issues I'm campaigning about will in effect highlight Scott Perry's failures over the last 10 years now.
It's up to you, I guess, if you want to do this next one, because it wasn't really a question, but the next comment for you was, tell us about your beautiful child.
So my beautiful child, well, I'll talk about healthcare because still dealing with that. My beautiful child is one of those children who's very, very fortunate. She has health insurance from both her mom and her dad. But in spite of that, we still spend a significant amount of time navigating the claim forms and the claim system with our healthcare system. So, you know, we need a simpler healthcare system so that people don't have to be fighting with insurance companies when they're sick. You know, she is extremely lucky. She was about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks premature, but she's doing fine. And that's thanks to the care she's able to access. And she's very fortunate. You know, in central Pennsylvania, we have lots of shortages of specialists. So a lot of her medical care actually happens in Philadelphia because we don't have the specialists to get her to appointments on time in central Pennsylvania. So she's a very, very lucky kid. And like me, she wants to make sure every other kid in the district has the same amount of luck she has.
That was a very well-timed smile.
Yes.
And then the only other thing I see so far is there anything about your platform you would like to expand on other than what you have shared with us already?
You know, I think so, but, you know, when it comes to the care and the rights of women and families, right, we need to really start taking women seriously as people, as workers, as intellectuals, as nurturers. We don't value nurturing in this country, generally speaking. And I think, you know, during the Jackson hearings, I think it was Senator Cornyn who was talking about, you know, about taking care of children after they're born, and the way he was asking her the questions, it was clear that he himself had never been involved in taking care for his kids, because no one would say that the baby feeds itself right after it's born. And I was like, well, not only did you not do it, but you also didn't talk to your wife about caring for your child. So we need folks who are really connected to those issues. We need pay equity for, or well, I think I mentioned that already. We need to make sure that women have the right to choose. You know, and after my pregnancy, I've become much stronger on that position. To tell you a little bit about my pregnancy, my pregnancy was fine on Thursday, and Friday I had to be induced. So the idea that legislators can create some uniform rule that that relates to that can regulate how women are getting care, or if they're getting care, is really laughable to me, because my own doctors disagree on how premature she is, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So if the experts don't know, I don't think the legislators will know. So I really think we, as generally speaking, we need to value the nurture that women and families need, because otherwise you don't have a healthy community. You know, and I think, you know, equal pay, expanding support for childcare, paying the childcare providers better wages, better benefits, etc. Those are all really important to our economy and the community, like not just the money, but also the quality of the community we're in.
Okay, time up.
Okay, so I shared the same links that Bernie had sent me, and then also the one that you had sent in the chat. But if there's any other information you want to share, you can go ahead and put it right in there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you both. This is really great. Again, I'll say the same thing. If somebody has a specific question they want to go back to Shamaine or to Rick with, please take advantage of their email addresses and their pages, their Facebook pages, to have any future questions answered. So you can make up your decision for the primary. So it's great to have two great candidates, and that they took the time out to meet with us. You're welcome to stay on. You're welcome to drop off. We're going over various other things. I already sent you guys the agenda, so it's up to you what you do now. Okay.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated.
Yep. Okay, moving on. We need to go to membership committee. Nikki, you're up next.